I want to see it later. Welcome all to the bi-weekly Wednesday webinar. Tonight, the topic, safe cycling, the do's, the don'ts, and the downright dangerous. I'm not sure about the English in that title, but there you have it. So this is a regular webinar that we're going to be doing every other Wednesday. And so if you want to stick around for consecutive ones, here's a short preview of what to expect coming up. On March 10th, where we have a webinar, No Cyclists Left Behind, Hot Tips on Forming or Finding Chill Rides. And this is all about group rides that are inclusive of every ability. How to make one if you feel like being a leader, or how to find one if you just want to get your bicycle legs moving a little bit, but not feel the pressure. The next one, brain injuries and bicycle and pedestrianism. Surviving a brain injury and thriving and using bicycling and walking as ways to heal and keep moving. In April, we are traveling to Tanzania. I keep getting those confused, I'm sorry. But we're going to go to Tanzania. We have one of our bicycle and pedestrian safety education instructors has been there for the last several months, doing a lot of visits to bicycle community centers and exploring the bicycle culture there. It's fascinating, very different than anything we have in Maine. And then on April 21st, maybe some of you have already run into this. There are very few bikes in inventory when you go to a bike shop, or even if you go to somewhere like Walmart. And so how do you get a bike when there are no bikes available? Or maybe you have a bike, a used one that you'd like to sell or pass along to someone else. So we're going to be talking about buying and selling used equipment. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing that screen and let's quickly just introduce ourselves. Ainsley and I will do so. My name is Eric De Silva, and I am the education manager for the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. The Bicycle Coalition of Maine is the statewide voice to help advocate for better bicycling, better walking throughout the state. So this is some of the activities that we'd like to share I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by an ice cream cone. And so a lot of the education work we do is going to be reflected in this webinar. And we'd love for you, as you're participating in this webinar, to chime in. If you have a question, you can raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or add a question in the chat box. It's just Ainsley and I hosting tonight, so we'll do our best to check out those chats. And on that note, Ainsley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. My name is Ainsley Judge. I'm the director of the Portland Gear Hub. We're a nonprofit outdoor gear and bike shop located in Portland. We're powered by Ketcha Outdoors, which some of you may have heard of it as Camp Ketcha. They've been around since the 1930s. But basically, the goal and the mission of the Gear Hub is just to get kids of all ages, so kids and adults, outside and active, and make sure that we're providing access to affordable and reliable gear. We sell camping gear, but primarily we're a bicycle shop and we do full service. And Eric, I liked seeing that future webinar on selling used bikes or finding used bikes, because the Gear Hub basically does only and all used bikes. We didn't run out last year because we weren't waiting on a barge to come from some other country. We were just recycling donations that were coming through. And the best part about recycling is it doesn't really dry out. You've always got something to make new again. So that's a little bit about my love for cycling. I've been working in bike shops, I don't know, a dozen years, and commuting for, I don't know, longer, since I had to bike to soccer practice as a kid.
Thanks, Ainsley. So tonight, we are going to be talking about being a safe bicycle driver. And we're also going to talk about being a safe motor vehicle driver when you're driving near vulnerable users, which is our technical term for bicyclists and pedestrians. And then if we have time at the end, we'll go into a few extra stuff. But we also want to allow time for Q&A, so we might do just more of that at the end. So really, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now. One of the big things with, hold on, this is the juggling of multiple windows here. I'm sorry. One of the biggest things with avoiding a crash is preventing one in the first place. And there's a notion out there that we can use equipment to keep ourselves safe, or sometimes we don't really own what we're doing wrong that is creating the accident. But actually, there's a lot that we can do to prevent an accident, a crash from occurring. So let's start with a quick poll so that we can, I'd like to know our audience a little bit better. So go ahead and answer this poll so that we can make sure that we're addressing the content in the right way. I'll give it a couple minutes just to kind of get a preview of who our audience is. And if you have someone really young with you and you're old, then put that young person as the number there, not just yourself. I'm going to end the poll and I'll share the results quickly. These are all anonymous. All right, so we have an older population, we don't have under 10s or teenagers. I have the impression then that a lot of you are going to be riding either on your own or maybe you could be going out with children or grandkids or friends. All right, so let's do one more poll. Oh, that was not supposed to change there. There's one more poll here. Okay, I'm going to end it and let's share the results. So the majority of you are bicycling because it's fun. I fully support that. It's also healthy. It's a great way to get fitness. Again, I do that too. And then we have a smaller majority of you who are really focusing on bicycling because it's less expensive and greener than driving a motor vehicle. And you want to use it for general transportation, commuting to work or school. So I think we will cover all of these things today, but not so much for health and fitness. I feel like that's going to be inherent in our discussions, but we will talk about ways to make your outings safe. So accident prevention is one of the primary ones there is what can we do to stay aware of our surroundings? And I feel like there's a slew of polls right now, but there's one more I want to do to really kick off what we can do and how important it is to pay attention. So this is the last one for a while. True or false? 50% of all bicycle crashes or falls due to loss of control due to a surface hazard, mechanical failure, or something similar. Other people, other animals, no vehicles other than my own bicycle are involved. Is that a true or false statement? Half of all bicycle crashes are essentially self-created without interaction with other animals or people or vehicles. Right. Ending poll and sharing.
No, all of mine are.
Mm-hmm. So this is true. And a lot of people are often amazed, but half of all crashes that a bicycle is involved in, and these are of course reports that go to the Department of Transportation, to law enforcement. So there are more out there that we don't know about. But half of all reported crashes are crashes that are very much preventable just by taking simple steps to protect oneself. So simple steps. One of the key ones, and I'm going to stop sharing again so we can. One of the key simple steps is don't be distracted. And we know a lot of, we hear a lot about distracted driving, but distracted bicycling doesn't necessarily mean you're riding down the road with a smartphone in your hand. It just means you're not necessarily paying attention to all your surroundings. And so what we like to teach when we talk to people who are beginning to cycle or want to kind of up their confidence level when they're bicycling near traffic is let's remove the blinders and let's think about scanning all around us. When we're on a very rural road and there's no driveways and we only are going to expect traffic coming from behind us, that might be different than a situation where we're in a downtown area and there's an intersection. When we're in that downtown area or intersection, it's really important that we're paying attention to what's on our left, what's in our right, what's behind us on our right. And we can do that by turning our head a lot. We can do that by listening and just trying to like note where do we see cars as we pass them? Where do we see cars ahead that might be pulling out? If we see a pedestrian, it's actually our duty on a bicycle to yield to that pedestrian as they cross the road. So paying attention is an incredibly important part of staying safe. And it's one of the easiest and cheapest things that we can do. Just to be attentive to our surroundings and know what's around us at all times.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, if I can just jump in a little bit on that, I think
Please.
one of the only times I was in a crash was the first time I learned how to clip in. And then the second time was when someone was skateboarding with headphones in, staring up at the sky and skateboarded into me. Um, and while I was focused on what was happening in front of me, I often see people wearing headphones, which I think can just take away from our ability to, by not being able to hear what's around us, we effectively don't necessarily see what's happening right in front of us. And so, yeah, listening and concentrating and allowing ourselves to dip into that meditative pedal stroke can go a long way.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to do, so paying attention is key number one. Let's talk about equipment now. So we have our bicycle, and our bicycle is just like any other vehicle. It's got a lot of moving parts, and things can work really well. And when they don't, they can lead to a crash. So in our state, it's actually the law to get our motor vehicles inspected, but it's not necessarily common for everyone to look and inspect their bike. One of the easiest ways to remember what to check on your bike is the ABC quick check. So air in the tires, B for brakes, C for chain, crank, really your drivetrain, and Q. Q for quick check, because this only takes 15 seconds to conduct. If you don't find any issues, you're on the road very quickly. And also Q for quick release, which is what holds the wheels on the bike. It also holds the saddle at a height. Some bikes don't have quick releases. They just use nuts to hold the wheels on and hold the saddle in place. So air in the tires. The top left of the screen here, you can see several different valves. And the valve is what allows a user to put air in the tire or take air out of the tire. The valves on the left are called Presta valves, and they operate differently than the valve on the far right, which is a Schrader valve. Most of us are mostly familiar with that because that's on most trucks and cars and wheelbarrows. When you put air into the tire, you're gonna wonder, how much should I put in? And there are two mistakes that I see most commonly. One, I see people riding around and their tires are very flat, not flat, very low in pressure. And the tires squishing a lot, and there's a huge amount of friction. That bicycle is not moving very quickly, and it's not moving very easily. It also can be dangerous if that person has to make a sudden move or turn, evasive control, then that tire is going to move around a lot, and it's not going to provide a snappy movement for the rest of the bike. At the other end of the spectrum, we see people that read the sidewall, the rubber wall of the tire, and most tires will have a recommended maximum air pressure. And a lot of them might say 65 for a bigger tire, or 120, 140 for a narrow road tire. Unless you're a very heavy individual, those pressures are too high and you're going to have an unpleasant ride. So grab the tire with your hand and squeeze it. Squeeze it really hard with your hand using your thumb, your fingers, the palm of your hand. And if it feels like it's a little bit soft to you, then it's probably like just a little bit of give, then it's probably good. Someone told me like an analogy recently. I don't remember what it was. It was like some sort of fruit. If you grab the fruit and you squeeze it really hard, it should feel similar. I don't remember now. I wish I could. I'm sorry. Ainsley, does anything come to mind for you?
I don't know that analogy, Eric. I'm sorry. I
Maybe it
can't
was
bail you out there.
like a plantain, those really hard banana-like fruits. Anyway, maybe I don't. The tangent there.
Is everyone aware of what their PSI should be? And have you found it on your tire wall? Maybe if you have, you could enter in the chat just what the tire pressure is. One thing that's fascinating from the bike shop perspective is that tire pressure varies so much, not just by bike and tire size, but also by the era that the bike was from. And a lot of modern bikes, even road bikes, are running really low pressure. And okay, 110, someone entered that. So that's going to be a high pressure road bike. 80.
It might be like a
Yeah, and
hybrid.
yep. At the shop, I inflate a lot of tires to like 40. That's kind of your typical mountain bike hybrid commuter type setup. And then, yeah, 80 and above is going to be road high tire pressure.
I'm
I teach
almost. Oh, I'm sorry, Ainsley. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I teach both kids and adults on how to fix a flat. And you go to look at the sidewall on your tire, and sometimes you can't read it. And other times, there's so many numbers there that aren't just about your tire pressure. So sometimes it can be a little confusing. Oh yeah, 35 to 40.
Yeah, someone runs 120 because they're a heavier person. I'm just around 200 pounds. I typically run like 100 psi on my narrow road bike tires, but on my mountain bike I run 20 to 25. On my commuter bike it's around 40 because I like if I'm not worried about rolling the tire or hitting and deforming the tire too much, I like the slightly cushier feeling of a softer tire. PSI, by the way, is pressure per square inch. And so in the USA, that's a imperial unit. And most pumps that we buy at a shop or find even like on a compressor, sometimes we'll have a gauge. Those measure in PSI. Sometimes other metrics as well, but PSI is the most common in this country. So air in the tires. B for brakes. Brakes it's pretty clear why we want brakes that function on a bike. What's not always clear is what to do when the brakes aren't working, or even how to know why the brakes aren't working. So the brakes on the bike shown in this picture are rim brakes, and they squeeze a rubber pad against the metal rim, and that slows you down. Sometimes bikes have disc brakes, and similarly, we're squeezing, well, they're not rubber anymore, but pads against the metal rotor that's attached to the wheel. Sometimes you have a drum brake. So if you remember your old BMX as a kid, and there was no brake, but you could kick your pedals backwards and you would slow down, that's a drum brake or a coaster brake. So the brake is inside of the rear hub. All these brakes operate by pads dragging on metal surfaces, essentially. And one of the common problems that can take place, especially with the brakes that probably most of you have on your bikes, which involve pads, are that the pads can wear down. And as the pads wear down, you have this problem like this image on the far right showing the brake lever going all the way to the handlebar. And once you get to that point, you can't pull the pads any closer and you can't slow down and stop properly. I have a friend who, he shares this story when he does instruction with students. But when he was in junior high or high school, he was riding down his driveway and he realized his brakes didn't work. He ran off the road, hit a fence, and broke his leg. And it was the first day of summer. And he realized that after that, it was the cable that was loose. And so as he pulled the brake lever, nothing happened because the cable was loose on the brake. So it helps to just, when you grab your bike, grab those brake levers, pull them, and make sure that they are acting the way they ought to. They're not going all the way to the bar. And when you pull them, you can push the bike forward and backward, and it's going to stay where it is. Anything else that we should add, Ainsley?
Yeah, brakes are really important. So don't, that's the step you just don't want to overlook.
No.
Even if you have a flat tire, make sure you can stop the bike.
C is for chain, crank, and drivetrain. And there's a lot of stuff here that you could learn about, but the most fundamental one is you want your chain to be healthy and your whole drivetrain to be healthy. And so if your chain is getting really rusty, if it's making a lot of noise, then that's a chain that could fail on you. It could break. It's going to be annoying at the very least to hear the squeaking. Other people may not appreciate it that are nearby either. But a rusty chain can certainly break, and it's going to wear down the components on your bike more easily, the other components that chain is touching. Another big problem, especially a problem with bikes that don't have multiple gears, they don't have a derailleur that keeps the chain taut, is when the chain is too loose. And so there's a picture on the far left of a bright orange bike and the chain is loose on there. When you have that problem, the chain can actually fall off the drivetrain and just hang. And that's going to prevent you from controlling the bike and accelerating or continuing your velocity. A drop chain can also, it can cause a crash. It can make your rear wheel lock up, which has happened to me before. It gets wrapped up in a certain way. On this bike, well, you'd have to imagine that this orange bike doesn't have the rim brake. A lot of youth bikes and even some like really simple adult bikes only have that coaster brake, that drum brake in the rear, in that rear hub. And if your chain falls off on a bike like that, then you've also, not only have you lost a chain, you've also lost the ability to stop or slow down the bike. So making sure that your chain is not spiraling at you is actually a good thing. And so one of the best things to put on a chain, someone asked, is WD-40 a good thing to use? And I would say no. WD-40 is actually a really good degreaser. It's not a great lubricant. It's also very, very thin. So even if it does lubricate a small amount, but it's going to fall off your chain very quickly. You're better off getting if you have just a cabinet in your garage, you might have something like 3-in-1 oil. That might work better. You can go to a bike shop and get an oil from them. Those are made specifically for chains. The key here is that when you lubricate your chain, this is, you don't want to drench it in lubrication. You want a small amount. You want to put just enough on to keep the squeak away, and not too much that would attract a lot of dirt, which makes the chain messy, attracts dirt, which then acts like a sandpaper against all the other metal parts of your drivetrain and wears everything else down as well. So something that's thicker than WD-40, but don't lay it on too thick.
Don't use olive oil either. We see that at the shop, or any other kind of vegetable oil. Yeah, it's really important to actually clean your chain before lubing. Otherwise, if you like Eric said, if you have too much lube, it will attract dirt and grease and grime up from the road, and so it can actually clog your drivetrain a lot more and cause your chain to wear just as quickly as if you had no grease on it. Um, and cleaning a chain can be as simple as just running a rag, like an old t-shirt, through your chain, or they make these really nice brushes called the grunge brush, which like sort of like holds your chain in place as you clean it. So yeah, I'd recommend a good lube and a good old t-shirt.
And then finally, quick check. So this check, once you get the hang of it, check the air, check the brakes, check the chain and everything that's touching it, check your quick releases. It's quick. That's why we call it like that. And it takes 15 seconds. So take 15 seconds before you head out and just do the ABC quick check. And quick releases, just a quick note about quick releases. Quick releases operate not like a wing nut. You don't spin it tight. You actually operate like a cam. And so this image at the bottom here is showing, you get to this point where it's shown in the picture, and then you lever it closed like a cam, and that's how they shut. When you look at a quick release, one side often says open and one side says close. It's usually really small. It's part of the metal forging process. you want to see clothes when you're looking at the bike. Um, I would actually advise you to go to a local bike shop and or ask a friend or a family member who knows that you feel is confident with the knowledge of quick releases if you have any questions about them. It's not one of those things that you want to get wrong because it does hold your bike together. Okay. Now let's talk. We're going to talk about being bright at night. And one of the misconceptions that sometimes happens with nighttime riding, and then we'll talk about just daytime riding as well, but I do want to talk about nighttime riding, is during at night, people often are not clear on what the very best type of material is to use. So I'm going to play a very short video and just check it out and watch it and see if you can count as they go through this no white at night challenge. It's about pedestrians, but the same principles apply to bikers as well. All right, so the point of that, and hopefully you all saw it, is that it's incredibly important to use materials that actually shine light when you're traveling at night on your bike. One of the state laws that we have in Maine is actually that you need to have, if you're operating your bike at night, you need to have a front white headlight. You must have a red rear reflector, and you must have some sort of reflective material either built into your pedals, which many bike pedals have already, or some sort of reflective material around your ankle. So here, for instance, is one of these cuff bands that can go around your cuff, keep your pant leg from getting caught up in the moving parts of your bike. That's also another good piece of advice. It's also reflective, and this one's also like a little bit more high tech. It actually like lights up and can even flash. They come much more simple than that. Like you can also just get a band. This is a slap bracelet that actually the Department of Transportation gives away. It's also reflective. But the idea is that you want reflective materials. Ainsley has a really cool jacket that she picked up at the Portland Gear Hub.
I wish I were in a dark room with a car flashing its headlights on me right now, but this windbreaker is fully reflective. So it's in a very fun purple design, but the entire thing is made up of reflective material. And you might be able to see it glimmer a little bit. But that's my apparel of choice for nighttime riding.
It's really, so we just want to make sure that people see us. This is part of accident prevention, is not surprising anyone. So how can we help motorists, other road users, notice that we're on the road as well? This is a really simple version of Ainsley's. It's just a vest. It's orange, but it has reflective strips on it. It's mesh, so it's not hot to use any time of year. So if I'm wearing an outfit like I have on currently, I have a gray shirt on, then I'm going to use this. We're going to talk about helmets a little bit more later, but my helmet's bright. It's the same reason, and there's a reflective sticker on the back so that it's easier for people to see me. We want to think about how can we make ourselves contrast how can we make ourselves look very different from the surrounding environment. So at night, when it's dark, that means being as bright as possible. During a snowy daytime ride, I saw a woman walking today. She was wearing a white long coat, and that's just not a safe thing to use because she blends in with the environment. Wearing a white shirt during a nice summer day when everything else is green might be fine. But what can we do in the summer then so that we stand out? Well, we can wear something that's bright instead, that's different than the surroundings. Don't look like the side of the road. That's probably the biggest thing to kind of take home there. And then bright and tight, like I mentioned earlier, take note of what you're wearing. There are other reasons besides aerodynamics that bicycling clothing is often tight, at least the stuff that you see marketed in bike shops and magazines. But tight clothing doesn't mean spandex necessarily, but jeans, dresses, anything that's baggy that could get caught in the moving parts of the bike can cause a crash. So I went to school in Philadelphia, and I was riding a bike. It's called a fixed gear bike. So there's no brakes except when you slow down and stop moving your feet. It's like a track bike. If the wheels are moving, the pedals are also moving. So in hindsight, probably not the smartest thing to do. And I had a pair of corduroys on, and I didn't use this. And the cuff of the corduroy got caught in the crank, the part that's spinning the big gear in the front. And it caught the corduroy, and it started pulling my pant leg into the chain, because of course the pedals are spinning and the crank's spinning, and I was going pretty fast, so I can't stop everything very quickly. And I ended up it pulled the pant leg all the way up to like above my knee, like ripping the corduroy, which put an incredible amount of stress on my leg. It also destroyed the corduroys, and it ended up like coming to a screeching halt as everything just got jammed up in the bike. That's probably a more severe example. I've talked to plenty of kids, especially, who talk about their shoelaces getting caught in the bike. So just kind of keep in mind all these things. Someone put in the example, the recommendation of using a bright tail light. The law says you need a red reflector. I agree that that's a very minimal and perhaps not very safe approach. So here's a light that attaches to the seat post. The seat post is what holds the seat, the saddle on the bike. And a nice thing about the more quality bike lights is that this one is steady or flashing, but it also has this setting, which I really like. And nope, not that one, sorry. This one. So it's a nice slow flash, and it changes, and it doesn't induce this, it doesn't have the strobe effect. And there are studies out there that show that the strobe effect can actually cause difficulty with some people that suffer from strokes. But for everyone, having a light that flashes like a strobe can make it really difficult to gauge depth. So depth perception is negatively affected. So something else to consider as you have strobe-like bikes on your light. During the daytime, that effect can work really well, but at night it can actually create difficulty with telling how far something is away from something else. Did I get everything in there, Ainsley? Anything else that we should add?
Sorry, I was on mute while I was responding to a question there, but I think you covered it pretty well. I would just say that there's a light that over the years I've come to really enjoy, which is actually a generator powered light. You may have seen those on older bikes, but you can get a dynamo hub light for any type of bike if that's something that you're interested in. And it's nice because I never have to charge my light or add new batteries, and it's just self-powered, really bright light, like some of the brightest lumens I've used. And they just get powered by my own front wheel.
Yeah, those are pretty slick. You're never left without a light.
And it runs in the daytime all day, and I don't have to think about it.
And you can also charge things like a phone sometimes, depending on what sort of equipment it is. So you can plug your phone into your front hub. Isn't that cool? It's called a dynamo hub.
Dynamo hub. There are a lot of different brands. Yeah, I can write that in there. Oftentimes you might have to get that custom built, but having a custom built wheel is actually not as expensive, doesn't have to be more expensive than just buying another wheel for your own bike. And so these wheels I've built myself, but you could also go to any bike shop or the Gear Hub and ask for one. And you can also get it wired so that not only does it power a front light, but also the rear light. If you're like me, I can be forgetful. And the worst thing is heading out to commute back home and realizing I didn't charge my lights that day.
So we're going to move on now to, didn't mean to do that. I have to do this. All right, so we got another poll coming up. Question is, what is the number one reason bicyclists are the cause of a crash involving a motor vehicle? In other words, why are they at fault? Why would a bicyclist be at fault? All right, stop it there. All right, so we got the number one reason is running a stop sign or a red light. And that's actually not it. Two people answered traveling in the middle of the road instead of, you can't read the whole thing here, but traveling in the middle of the road instead of the bike lane or on the shoulder. And we're going to get to that a little bit later, but traveling in the middle of the road is legal in Maine. And there are several reasons why a bicycle might be in the middle of the road instead of on the side of the road. You are allowed to do it. And in some cases, you absolutely should do it. And then we had two people that answered wrong way riding facing traffic. And that is the correct answer. The number one reason a bicycle causes a crash, and it would be their fault, the person riding the bicycle's fault, is because they would be on, in this country, they'd be on the left side of the road riding against the normal flow of traffic. And the reason that that's so dangerous is because it's so unpredictable. In the same way we would expect any other vehicle traveling the opposite of the normal flow would be dangerous and unpredictable. It is that way for bicyclists as well. As a bicyclist, we are not able to see traffic control devices like stop signs, red lights, green lights, etc., when we're on the wrong side of the road. And as a motor vehicle driver, or anyone who's traveling and looking for other cars, if we, like the example here might be someone waiting in the driveway of their home or a gas station, they're sitting at the driveway waiting to turn right and enter the flow of traffic. And so they're looking to the left and they're looking for traffic. And once in a while, they might look to the right. They might be looking for a pedestrian. But no one's going to expect a vehicle, a bicycle, coming from the right. And so they'll pull out, and that's where a common crash might take place. Sorry, I didn't share these results. Here you go. So be predictable, travel with the flow of other traffic. And that's the number one way that when at least a crash involves another motor vehicle, you can actually reduce the likelihood of such a crash taking place. It's also really uncomfortable for some people to do that. We grow up learning that walking against the flow of traffic is the safest way to conduct ourselves because we can use our eyes and perceive what's coming at us. And so getting to the point where you can bike with the flow of traffic and not necessarily have our eyes doing that much work can be uncomfortable, which is why we talk so much about wearing bright colors, making sure that we're visible. And it's also really important to know where you are in the road. What is the road you're on a safe road to be on? Do you feel comfortable there? Is there a shoulder? Is the traffic really heavy? If there are components to that road that make you feel uncomfortable, then it's worth your due diligence to find a route that is actually light in traffic or has a nice infrastructure like a shoulder or a bike lane along the side of it that would allow you to be more comfortable and travel along that. But yeah, Ainsley, do you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, no, I just think it's about remembering to behave like you're driving a car and follow the same rules of the road. And we do see it all the time. And I think, yeah, it's just something that we have to unlearn, maybe culturally and as individuals.
And someone just put in, I can't ride without my rear view mirror. Absolutely, that's a great way. There's rear view mirrors on cars for a reason. And if you have a rear view mirror, they sometimes attach to the side of the helmet right here. You can also get them that attach directly to glasses, and you can even get some that attach to the handlebar of your bike. Those 3 good ways that you can have a rear view mirror so that you're not having to turn your head, which could be uncomfortable, but still keep an eye on what's going on behind you. Sidewalks come up a lot too. Can I ride my bike on a sidewalk? And you can ride your bike on sidewalks in most places in the state. There's only a select few municipalities that actually say it's not allowed. Generally, what we say is if the speed limit is over 35 miles an hour, or if you're with children, that might be the time where you might want to get on a sidewalk. Otherwise, if you're in like a downtown setting and the sidewalk really is being used by walkers especially, and the traffic is calm, that might be a good time to get onto the roadway and just ride your bike in the bike lane or on the shoulder or even in the middle of the lane, as you might need to do. I'm going to share my screen again. Another part of so another rule of the road is that we actually do need to communicate with other road users. So here is a slide showing basic hand signals that we as cyclists should do to communicate what we're going to do with other cyclists, to other road users, I'm sorry. When I talk to kids, I'm telling them just to point to where you're going to go. Don't worry about left and right, point to where you're going to go. When we're making the right hand signal, it's common to actually want to use this one here. If you're older, maybe you learned this in driver's ed even. The problem with this on a bike is that a lot of new driver's ed courses do not teach this at all. And so this is becoming a more and more alien hand sign to new road users out there. It also gets confused with, hey, how you doing? Like it's a wave. It also gets confused with the snowmobile ATV signal for I'm going to stop. So I would suggest avoiding this altogether. Instead, use this as your right hand signal for turning. Putting your hand down and showing your palm to people behind you is the universal stop signal. So communicating just like we do with blinkers on a car is another fantastic way to communicate, not surprise anyone, and stay safe out there. A lot of times we come up with a problem where someone doesn't feel comfortable taking their hands off the handlebars. My advice in those situations is often, if it's possible, like practice taking your hands off in short intervals in a very safe place, a parking lot, somewhere where there's not motor vehicle traffic until you can get the hang of it. So all of this.
I think.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I also see a lot of hand signals that that can be a little weak, where they can be a little limp or not very firm. And I think, you know, as with all things in life, clear communication is really important. And I try to teach folks who are getting back on their bike after a long time to take advantage of the fact that your bike isn't contained within a metal box. And so you have the opportunity to use your body to tell people where you're going and also even make eye contact with other drivers. That is our one way of letting people know what we're about to do next, and being predictable is one of the safest ways to be on the road.
So wrapping up the how to be safe, here's a worksheet that we actually hand out and have available on the Bicycle Coalition and Maine website. And it's our Be a Safe Bike Driver worksheet. It goes through the key points. And if you want to do more of this at home, it's geared towards a younger audience, but it's certainly attainable for any audience, any age level. You can go to our at-home education site, and you can go to our basic education site there and get a lot more information. There's activities, there's some videos there that we can go through as well. And it's occurring to me that we didn't talk a lot about helmets. So very quickly, I skipped over helmets, in fact, is what happened. But I'm going to stop sharing just so you can see my screen. So helmets, very basic, fancy coffee cup with a hard plastic shell. Just like a coffee cup, it can be delicate. So helmets are not designed to be thrown around or tossed or laid out in the sunlight for long periods of time. It's going to protect your head like the way a seatbelt would. It's not a substitute for everything else we've talked to either. This is a last resort. When everything else goes wrong, this is what's going to protect you and your brain from serious injury. So it's one-time use. Once a helmet gets used in a severe crash, or if it drops from a high level, like top shelf in the garage onto a concrete floor, that might be all it takes to actually compromise what it can do to protect your brain in the event of a real crash. This is probably the biggest thing I see wrong with when I see people wearing helmets. It's too far back on their head. I also see a lot of younger people just wearing their helmets and not buckling it. Or older people So the easiest way to put your helmet on is to use two fingers above your eyebrow, keeps the helmet right and level on your head. So it's going to protect both front and back. Same two fingers, make a peace sign around the ear. And that's the way the strap should go. They should come together below your earlobe, and they should both be equal in tension. If one's very loose or the other is very loose, it can prevent the helmet from staying tight, and it will do this instead as you're riding along, or if you're in a crash. And finally, after you buckle it, two fingers under the chin strap. When you open your mouth, you should be able to feel the whole helmet get tight on your head. So it's the eyes, ears, mouth. And we teach that to kids, we teach that to adults. It's just one of those quick things you can do to make sure that your helmet is on your head and will actually stay there when you're in a crash. All right, so let's move on to talking about driving a motor vehicle and avoiding hurting or killing, worst case scenario, someone who's walking, someone who's a pedestrian, someone who's bicycling. Number one thing that we're all familiar with hearing is distracted driving. And we've actually seen a pretty unfriendly uptick in recent years from distracted driving and what it does to the rate of injuries and crashes and even fatalities. So when you're in the car, don't put the phone down, turn it on silent, whatever you want to do to not be distracted. Have your co-pilot do all that stuff while you're focusing on driving. I don't want to spend a lot more time on that because we're running out of time, and you've probably heard a lot about distracted driving already. But there is, we do have something else that we like to really help people understand better, and that is how our speed affects our ability to actually see what's on the roadway. I'm going to share a slide again, and this is a slide. It's probably the only slide that I would consider scary in what we're showing you tonight. But this is a slide showing what our vision, what our brain is actually capable of processing at different speeds. So the top picture shows a driver traveling at 15 miles an hour. And just like any sort of processor on a computer or a video camera, our brain is taking a lot of imagery information and processing it and creating a picture that we can actually comprehend and appreciate. So when we're traveling at slower speeds, there's more time for our brain to process all the imagery information, and we actually have a wider field of view. And we're able to see a lot more. So when we're in an area where we are going to expect to see pedestrians, bicyclists, going at a slow speed is really important to being able to know what's around us and to avoid them. And you can see the effect here as we go down to the lower picture, now traveling at 35 miles an hour. The actual, the dotted red circle there, that's actually what we're able to focus on. Everything outside that red circle is in our peripheral vision, and our brain has a tendency to like fill that area in with history from previous drives down the same street. A previous drive down that same street may not have had pedestrians about to cross at this crosswalk. And so our brain is not going to alert us that there's pedestrians there. There's been a lot of really fascinating studies on this phenomenon. So that's why we advocate for traveling at slower speeds. The fatality risk just between these 20-mile-an-hour differences is 20 times different. And for that reason, the Bicycle Coalition of Maine actually created this thing called Slow Me Down, this program. And it's all about just advocating for when in downtown areas, travel at the posted speed limit or travel below the posted speed limit. If you'd like to know more, you can go to bikemaine.org/slowmedown, or just go to bikemaine.org and you can find a easy link there. But we're actually asking people to sign a petition. You can get a bumper sticker, you can get a lawn sign. None of it's for charge. It's all free, and support this idea. If you're with people in a car, I actually encourage you to be a backseat driver and say, "Hey, slow down. It's 25 miles an hour here. There's no reason to go 35." So, little ping there on how speed kills, essentially. You also want to watch out for blind hills, blind turns. Those are common problems. Don't pass there. If there's a double yellow line, I had a poll set up, but because we're running low on time, I'm going to skip it. You are actually allowed to pass on a double yellow. So this was the legal or not question. Are you allowed to do what's shown in this picture? And the answer is yes. In Maine, you are allowed to pass a cyclist even when there's a double yellow. The key part of this is you should only do so when you can see ahead far enough to know that oncoming traffic won't be an issue, and you need to provide at least 3 feet of space to the bicyclist as you're passing. Anything else, Ainsley, that we should add about what I've talked so far about?
Yeah, these are very powerful visuals. I think it's, yeah, great information. I'm a big fan of Slow Me Down.
Yeah, it's terrific. I always drive the speed limit, and I always have a queue of cars behind me because no one else drives the speed limit as slow as I do, I guess. So there's that pressure there, social pressure to keep up with traffic, but resist it. This is called the Dutch Reach. This made news. It's made news more often than not in more recent years compared to a long time ago when it was sort of not even in existence. The idea of the Dutch Reach is when you open a car door and when you're in an area where you're parallel parking, especially, use your right hand to actually rotate your shoulders, open that door, and by using your right hand, it's actually going to force your whole upper body to twist so that you can look backwards out the window and see if there's oncoming traffic coming. So for this bicyclist in this picture, it would be terrible. It'd be called dooring, where the bicyclist runs into the door and causes a crash. In the lower left is a picture here where you can see the bike lane was put in a really poor position because anytime any one of those cars opens their door, the bike lane is immediately blocked. And if someone's in the bike lane, then there's going to be a crash right there as well. There's a few questions in chat. I was just going to see what they are. Oh, cool. Just thumbs up. All right, so we have this. This is another example of legal or not. Let's do the poll because I think the polls are really interesting to see
go anywhere.
What you folks say. So 2 people riding side by side, or we call it 2 abreast. Is this legal or not? We got about half of the people. See if we can get a few more here because it's neck and neck. Come on, someone's got to break the tie. All right, now we're starting to see really strong here. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. All right, so most of you said not legal, and that's not actually correct. So what I would say is that it's not always appropriate, but this is actually a legal behavior for bicyclists in the state of Maine. It's legal to do. In some cases, it might even be safer to do if you really want to prevent traffic from passing because you know there's oncoming traffic it could cause a crash for someone to pass. If there's a blind hill or turn, if you're setting up to make a turn, if a bicycle is going to turn left, you're going to want to prevent traffic from passing. I would say it's not always appropriate because I see there are times when you're on a road and doing this type of thing sets a bad precedence for the bicycling community. And so when possible, my response would be ride single file. But when there's not other traffic on the road and you want to hang out with your friend and chat, then riding 2 abreast is a reasonable thing to do. Use that rear view mirror and keep an eye on what's coming up behind you so that you can be courteous and move single file when possible. So this is the last like teaching slide I had set up. And this is one of my favorite comic artists, bikeyface.com. She does a lot of really creative stuff involving bicycling and commuting by bike and just all the crazy things that bicyclists encounter on the road. This one's obviously a little bit more crazy because we don't have mythical sea monsters in puddles, but the gist of this comic is, why is the bicyclist in the middle of the road, in the middle of the lane? And here is a whole slew of reasons why a bicycle might be traveling in the lane. So this is a good slide for two reasons. One, if you're starting out and you're a bicyclist and you want to gain confidence, it's good to know that you can be in the lane. You might be in the lane because the shoulder has a crack in it, there's broken glass. This time of year, the bike lane might not be cleared of winter weather. Any other time of the year, you might be in the middle of the lane because you want to prevent, like I said, people from passing if it's not safe. You might be in the middle of the lane because there's actually a right turn only lane and you want to go straight. And so you're going to stay in that straight lane because you're not turning right. You might be in the lane because you're setting up to make a left turn to go to a driveway, turn at an intersection. And being in the middle of the lane, positioning yourself in a particular part of the lane is a great way to communicate your intentions. If you're in the middle of the lane, that's a good intention that I'm going to be going straight at an intersection. If you're on the left turn third of that lane, that's a good way to communicate that I'm actually setting up to turn left, coupled with a left turn hand signal. That's a really great way to double reinforce your intentions and not cause any unnecessary miscommunications with other motorists. So check out bikeyface.com. She's got some other really cool stuff. Like she's got a great one for dooring, where it has a kangaroo in it. So just to give you a little carrot to go search it out. And then just a couple other like extra things here. You might be wondering, where can I ride my bike? And Bike Maine, the Bicycle Coalition Maine has a platform called Where to Ride. And these are routes that have been curated to cover many different distances throughout different places in the state. And these routes are not necessarily routes that are completely off-road, separated from traffic, but they are routes that have been deemed either very safe or very scenic or very adventure oriented. And so you can go to bikemaine.org/where-to-ride, or just go to bikemaine.org and you can find the link and click on any one of these and it'll give you turn-by-turn directions, cue sheets, and show you photos from the routes. It's a really cool platform. Another platform that's been around for a long time and just seems to be getting better every year is Google Maps. This doesn't give you the curated, I want to go for a nice kind of loop on my bike. But what it does provide is, I want to get to Trader Joe's. This is a picture of downtown Portland. How do I get to Trader Joe's if I don't live near Trader Joe's and I want to go by bike? I'm used to driving there and I take 295. I don't know how to get there on a bike. So you can actually go to Google Maps and turn on their bicycle layer. And I would suggest Googling for the instructions on that, or you can email, you're welcome to email me and I can walk you through it. Once you turn on that bicycle layer, all these roads turn green that Google has deemed is safer for bicycles to travel upon. And so a lot of these, over here we see the Eastern Promenade. Let me get that to work. So this is the Eastern Promenade, which is completely separated from traffic. And then we have some roads like here along Deering Avenue. Like this is a road that's just set up for bicycle traffic. It's got a shoulder, it's got a bike lane, and it's safer. If you're on Cumberland Ave, whatever analytics and metrics have been used deems that Cumberland Ave is not as safe. So sometimes you got to piece things together. Google Maps also has like a direction thing just to get from A to B. So we're just over 8 o'clock. Try to keep things as much on time as possible. You're welcome to contact me, Eric at bikemain.org. I'm sure Ainsley would be happy to connect with you as well, either at the Gear Hub. Ainsley, are you actually open for business right now? Are you doing appointments? How's that working?
We are actually open. People can come in 2 at a time. So we've set up a pretty small sort of COVID safe area with a lot of extra ventilation in place.
Cool. So if you're in Portland area and you want to check out a cool shop and get some like local info, check out the Gear Hub. If you're in some other place of the state and you want to connect with someone and actually get like information from a human being in person, most shops are open and COVID safe, of course. And you can go in there, and people that work in shops, people that visit shops, they're really knowledgeable about the surrounding area. So if you want some really like local information, where can I ride my bike? You can have a great conversation. They can get to know what type of bicyclist you are, what exactly you're looking for, and then make some excellent recommendations. That's probably the best like individualized information that you can collect. And we have bike shops all over the state, so you're lucky. Someone actually asked, what can I use to collect information to track my routes, my distance, time, elevation? What sort of app? So I'm assuming that's probably for a smartphone, and there's a lot of apps to use on a smartphone. Probably the 2 most popular are Strava and Ride with GPS. Strava is very much, it collects all the information, but it also kind of sets you up to be competitive against either yourself or against other people. You can keep everything private, and then it's just for yourself. You can also check out Ride with GPS. I'll put those into the comments. Ride with GPS is what our Where to Ride platform operates on. And it's a really cool way to create routes and track routes as you ride them. It also offers turn-by-turn cues when you use any of the routes from our platform. At least your phone, if it's in a handlebar bag, if it's strapped to the handlebar, will actually tell you when to turn on a certain road and what road that is. So it's really helpful if you're looking for guidance in a new place that you haven't explored before. It won't work so well when you're off on a mountain bike trip, but on roads with street names, it works really, really well. So Strava.
They increasingly have trails too.
Yeah. Ride with GPS. And I'm also going to put this in. It's called Trailforks. Trailforks is the mountain bike version of Ride with GPS or Strava. So it allows you to see trails everywhere in the country, and it's actually really impressive. So those are 3 apps. If you're still paying attention, if you're still here, I just put them in the chat. There's others out there, and if you really want more privacy and not sharing your data with anyone else, then I would advocate looking for some of the other ones out there. But these are all really good, very, very high quality app softwares. I don't think you'll be disappointed with what they offer you. And they're all free unless you want to pay for a premium option, which gives you extra perks. Not necessary, in my opinion, all the time. I also had a note on my own list of things to talk about here. A friend of mine, he likes to say, if you don't have a bag on your bike, where are you going? And I really like that, because I ride with a bag pretty much on every one of my bikes. And I don't mean like giant panniers that you can bring groceries home on, although I do that sometimes too. But just something small that you can put some snacks into, you can like throw your light into, so that if you get caught out in the dark, you just take it out of your bag, it's there. Flat tire kit, multi-tool kit. You know, they make these little teeny bags that can keep all this stuff on your bike, but those aren't really useful for taking extra stuff with you. So a bag that's just big enough to throw like a vest in, a sandwich, some fun things to keep you happy. If you're with kids, it's especially important to have extra stuff. So I would seek out either making your own bag or buying a nice one at a shop somewhere, or maybe the Gear Hub has some used ones even.
Sure do.
So let us know if you have any questions through email. Thank you so much for attending, and hope to see you in a few weeks for the next webinars that are going to be coming up. Check out our events page at bikemaine.org for that listing as well.
Thanks, Eric, for having me on. It's nice to meet all of you virtually. Maybe someday at the shop.
One day when the pandemic ends, we'll all get together and go for group rides again.
Oh,
All right.
thanks,
Well,
Eric.
good night, everyone.